Welcome to the Midlife Sex Coach for Women podcast, the only show that combines a fun personality, medical knowledge, sexual counseling, and life coaching together to create unique sex coaching that helps busy women awaken their libidos, address intimacy issues, and learn how to express their sexuality for the rest of their days. Here's your host, certified life coach and sexual counselor, Dr. Sonia Wright.
You are listening to the Midlife Sex Coach for Women podcast, episode 229. What? So amazing. Hello, 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 diamonds. Today, I have such a special guest. I'm super excited to tell you about her and to introduce you to her. So let's get started. Hello, 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 diamonds. I am so excited today. I cannot believe that I scored this person today to be on my podcast. I can't even tell you. She is fabulous. She's knowledgeable. She's got a good heart. She loves the work that she does, and she is super smart. So today I am talking to Dr. Evgenia Polosina, and she is fabulous and amazing. I'm going to read a little bit about her so that you know how great she is. She is a board certified gynecologist and the founder of the Longevity Club, MD. She is dedicated to advancing women's health and sexual wellness through personalized, curated, longevity-focused care. Oh my goodness, Dr. Polosina.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Such an honor.
I am super excited. Do you know why I'm super excited?
Tell me.
Because we're going to be talking about longevity. And the focus that I have for the Midlife Sex Coach for Women podcast is on creating sexual intimacy for the next 30 years and beyond, right? And when you said longevity, I was like, yes, I have to have this woman on. I need to know all of the secrets. So we're going to have such a great conversation. So I just want to talk to you. You mentioned a little bit before when we were talking before the podcast about this concept of seasons of life, seasons of sexuality for a woman. Can you tell me a little bit more about that concept? And then we're going to get into all the things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do believe that woman's life and definitely sexuality have seasons, right? So there are seasons where we more sexually active when we are having higher libido and desire. And there are seasons when we don't feel like that. And I guess this concept came to my mind to explain to the patients that nothing is broken and nothing is wrong. That's okay not to have high libido all the time. That's absolutely fine. That's okay to feel sometimes not having sex. And obviously we talk about other things, but I think the concept of it that nothing is broken and nothing is wrong.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I have gone so far as to call the libido more like neutral libido. Like it's not broken, it's just coming from a different place where neutrally you could be like, maybe I could be interested in sexual intimacy, or maybe I could do the dishes over here. And it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world, and it is different. I would say yes, it's different from what the libido might have been like before. And then there's this concept of a responsive libido, and they talk about how 70% of women live in a responsive libido state.
I believe in it.
Yeah, but I love this concept of just kind of seasons. And if we can get this idea out of our mind that we are broken, because the fallacy, if there is a fallacy, then the fallacy would be around the fact that we're supposed to stay the same throughout our life. That is the fallacy. That's the belief that is causing problems. Like, we don't stay. Like you talked about the different seasons. Yes, there's that season in the beginning where like maybe can you talk about more like what our libido and sexual interest looks like in our 20s and early 30s, what that looks like?
Absolutely. I think it's probably would be, I would define it as probably the highest or peak of sexuality when, well, you're young, you're beautiful, you're very self-oriented, right? There are not a lot of stress, not a lot of baggage. Usually, no children, no husband, or any other stressors in your life. And your hormonal levels are high, right? Your estrogen is there, it's beautiful. Your ovaries work very well. Um, you ovulate, you have your progesterone, you have amazing amount of testosterone, so your sex drive is there, right? So that's the woman when she is ready, let's say, to enter reproductive age. And that would be probably definition of 20s, like 20s, early to mid to late 20s. And unfortunately, that is taken as a baseline for women's sexuality. Like, oh, I don't feel like it anymore.
You're completely right. Like that is the basis at which everything else is compared to. And
Absolutely.
but like if you were to talk about like who a woman is and what she is in her essence and what her life is like, that's just a small part of her life that does not last for very long. What period of a woman's life doesn't have stress in it, doesn't have children, doesn't have a partner, doesn't have a job, doesn't have bills, doesn't have like all those things, right? It's a relatively short period of time. If I were to go back to a state where I didn't have a job, I didn't have bills, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a mortgage, I didn't have like my busy job or anything like that. I think right now at 60, my sex level would be pretty high. I'd be sleeping all the time, you know. So I think
Absolutely.
like there's the context of the life at that point in time as well that we really need to take into consideration. So what happens in our like mid 30s to mid 40s? What season would you describe that as?
I think it's probably the midlife season, right? When our hormones are shifting, our ovaries are still there. They're still doing a fabulous job as much as they can. You ovulate, you still have your estrogen levels, progesterone, testosterone. However, those numbers are going down. So they do say that by age of 35, let's say, the estrogen goes down by about 30%. Yes, you still have your period. Yes, you still have it, hopefully, every month. Um, but the hormonal shifts is quite, I mean, it's there, right? Plus you have the midlife and all the baggage of the midlife when you have, as you describe, all of those things which can contribute to stress. And that season may not come with a high sexuality as your 20s. And I believe that's the time when women start questioning themselves and they're like, well, is wrong with me? Like, I just don't feel like having sex anymore, right? My partner approaches me and it's just like, don't feel like doing it. It's like another job, which adds to my list of to do things. And as you probably know, as a women, we have a long to do list all day, every day, right? So quite often I hear that it's just another job, another chore which you have to do essentially.
Sure.
Um, yeah, that's what I would describe as a midlife season, which usually comes with a lower sexuality.
I'd have to say, since I'm hitting 60, the 35 to 45 range, that would be the early part of midlife, right? Because like having gone through even more,
Oh,
um,
yes, absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
yes, definitely. You still have some estrogen in there, still have some testosterone or whatever, but your responsibilities are shifting in life, right? And you're right. This is about the time that people start realizing that that sex is becoming more of on the to-do list, and I call it to-do list sex, right? Where you're just like, it's another duty. If I can get this thing over as fast as I can so I can get to sleep or take care of the kids or have a minute for myself or get in the bath or whatever it is. So that begins. And then, the interesting part of like, if we were to go to 45 to 55, that's when it's on, right? That's when we're smack in midlife, and that's when our hormones are shifting the most, right? So
Absolutely.
what's happening in that stage, the 45 to 55 stage?
Absolutely. So when we talk about 45 to 55, I would say it's probably perimenopausal transition, and it can be early one or the late one. when your ovaries are still there, they're doing as good job as they can, right? They still occasionally ovulate. So your period become irregular. Your hormones are going down with it. And I believe this is probably the most prominent shift which women acknowledge, right? Like they're just something is not going right? When they used to track their period or whatnot, when they used to have that regularity in how they feel, like they don't really feel regular anymore. Like I'm not talking about the period, right? I'm talking about the mood swings. I'm talking about poor sleep. I'm talking about, you know, and obviously the sexuality. We're talking about sex, right? Lower libido, and that season when women usually come to us because that's more prominent. The changes are more prominent to them.
Yeah, so I'm hearing 45 to 55 is when people are showing up in your office. Is that, would you say
I would
that's
say I would say it's probably like 90% of my patients.
okay? Well, that's good to know. So, okay, say that I'm back in that 45 to 55 range, and I could just tell you what I'm dealing with because, like, not being able to sleep, brain fog. I've definitely gone to a number of like sexual medicine doctors and just midlife women doctors and things like that. So but when I was having a lot of the symptoms, like hot flashes, brain fog, like not being able to sleep, feeling shifting in my libido, like those type of things. Now, um, how do you address that? Because you come from a longevity standpoint, so if I were to show up in your office, how would you address all the stuff that I have going on from a longevity perspective? What would that look
Oh,
like?
absolutely. I think the first thing what we do in our practice, we do look at the hormonal levels. We look at your estrogen, we look at your progesterone, we look at your testosterone, and we really take a really deep dive into the symptoms and issues you might be having or you wanting to address. Um, when we talk about HRT, right? Like now everybody talks about HRT. I really believe this is probably the era of, I call it hormonal renaissance, right? Like where everybody is like really acknowledging the importance of hormonal health. From the longevity standpoint, we do provide good quality HRT, and it does help to address the issues you just mentioned, right? The brain fog, the poor sleep, the bone health, the the cognition, right? The memory, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So I have to be really careful what I'm actually saying right now because there are some controversial information about, well, not controversial, I guess, conflicting information about the cognition in HRT, because they did come up with a recent information that a late introduction of HRT can actually result in dementia. So, like, I can't really say that it helps with cognition, but yes, I agree. Like, I think the sleep is probably the cause of the brain fog. If I would choose, probably addressing sleep would probably address the brain fog with HRT. But anyway, so going back to the conversation, I
Yeah.
just like, it's a side note, just as I'm thinking about it. So we do address a woman's health from longevity standpoint to make sure that she doesn't have osteoporosis when she gets older, right? We make sure that she doesn't have genitourinary syndrome of menopause, make sure that she doesn't develop lichen sclerosis and vaginal atrophy, and so forth and so forth. So they're multidisciplinary, I would say, multifactorial approach we take to take care of our patients.
So thank you for listing out some of those things that are happening. I'm wondering, just so all of our listeners are clear, what specifically is happening to our vulva? Because I think that this is something that's really important to know what specifically is happening to our vulva and what hormones kind of are impacting what's happening to our vulva.
Absolutely. What's happening to our vulva? So let's talk about the vulva, right? So, and we talk about external organs, or we talk about internal as well.
I'm talking about the outer lips, the inner lips, the clitoris, of course, any innervation that's happening there, like anything that you want to tell us about the vulva, I'm here to hear.
Okay. Um, Anything you want to tell about vulva? Okay, so the most important thing which happening with hormonal changes are atrophy, right? So the atrophy can be internal and external.
Mm,
The atrophy can come with less blood supply. The decreased blood supply obviously can cause nerve. I
mm.
wouldn't call it the nerve damage, right? Like it should not really resolve into the nerve damage, but definitely dullness in sensation and can affect woman's life and sexuality.
Ah, there's like an increased risk of urinary tract infection. Like why that would have an increased risk of urinary tract infection?
Um, so a vagina has its own flora, right? Like we have the good bacteria we have like the bacilli and so forth and so forth. So when the atrophy or decreased hormonal levels causing the atrophy, those shifts flora in the vaginal canal,
Okay.
right? When the vaginal canal flora shifts, um, the atrophy also can affect the urethra. So the bad bacteria, so you don't have enough blood supply and you don't have enough good support of the good bacteria to fight the bad bacteria. I mean, that's probably the best way I can explain.
Okay.
And
Well, yeah.
UTI, obviously, the result of it.
And I hear like that's something to be aware of whether or not you're sexual. Like this is something that most women should be aware of that there's an increase.
Or absolutely, yes, absolutely. Whatever you're sexually active or not, unfortunately, the vaginal atrophy can result in the frequent UTIs.
And so what would you say is the number one sexual concern that your clients, your patients come to you about?
I think it's pain and discomfort
Mm.
during intercourse, right? So, I mean, think about as we're talking about libido, think about how how much of the negative reinforcement you get from having pain with sex. I mean, who would want to do that?
Right, and your body's not gonna want you to do that, right? So your body's gonna, be like, "How can I reinforce this so that we don't have sex, right? Let's shut it all down."
Absolutely. And this is probably one of the most, well, I would say decreased libido and pain with sex, probably the most common complaints I hear from the patients.
And, um and if you can talk a little bit, I know you can't talk like about everything, but I know there's HRT, systemic HRT. And then what form does the systemic HRT come in? Is it mainly patches? Are there pills? What are the different forms of the
Or
systemic?
absolutely, there's so many forms. I mean, it's all about the vehicles of delivery for HRT. And when we talk about systemic HRT, so there are two types of HRT, right? One is topical, and topical is for the woman's health would be the vaginal HRT, right? Estrogen, which basically um, treats local changes, and there is a systemic one which we introduce the hormones into your body through either patches. There's oral and transdermal approach, and depending on what hormones we're talking about, if we're talking about the estrogen, there is oral form, there is transdermal form, and transdermal form can come into the patches, sprays, gels, mists, creams. I think those are the most common ones I can think about.
Okay, okay, that's good to know that there's a number of different ways. Uh, and how do you decide on the different like ways of getting the estrogen? Is it dependent on each woman, what works better for her, or how do you know which one is
Or
best?
absolutely, I really when you look into the studies, the most safe way to introduce estrogen is transdermal approach because it bypasses the liver, right? So it decreases risk of DVT and VT. Um, the way we usually decide on what form to get. I mean, just chatting with women, right? Like if she loves patches, great. Like we can go with FDA approved bioidentical patches, which easy to get. If it doesn't work for any reason, then we can try different vehicles of introduction, whatever it is, a mist, gel, cream, and so forth.
Now, when somebody comes to you, what is the most important thought or concept that you want to get across to them? They're coming either they've got pain with sex, things are shifting in their body, they're going through perimenopause, menopause, they're just trying to figure it all out. What is like the number one message that you want to make sure that they get?
Okay, well, there are two concepts I kind of talk to my patients quite often about. Is desire and arousal,
Uh,
right? So going back to the seasons of life, when you're in your 20s, or well, women in their 20s, they have the thought or desire, right? And they have arousal, which comes quite fast. So there's like no gap between desire and arousal.
yeah.
And that concept shifts quite significantly in midlife, right? So there are there is a little bit of a delay between the desire, and desire I would define as a thought of having sex, right? Either your partner approaches you or you have a thought like, okay, we're going to have sex, or, oh, maybe a thought about sex. So that's your desire. And arousal, which is a physical a readiness to have intimacy. And I believe in significant gap. The older you get, the more of that gap you have between your thought of having sex and being ready to have sex.
Yeah.
So if anybody comes to me with a low libido, pain, discomfort, and so forth and so forth, if I would change one concept is to educate them about desire and arousal. Because if you have a desire and a thought to have sex, it doesn't mean that you are ready, like next 30 seconds
Oh.
for intimacy. You may take a little bit of time to get yourself ready, whatever it is, a foreplay, whatever it is, music, whatever works for the couples. That probably the concept I would introduce more often than not.
I love that concept because when you sit and you tell women this ahead of time and normalize it, I think this is the important aspect of it, that you're going to have a desire and then there's arousal in your body and then you're going to go on to have sexual intimacy. Between those two places is a gap. And maybe the gap is like this when you're in your 20s. And so you don't even notice that there is one. You're like, maybe it's like that, and like 1 centimeter. And maybe by the time we're in midlife, it's like a ruler length or something like that, like in terms of time and space or whatever. Maybe it takes you 20 minutes. Maybe it took a minute when you're in your 20s, and maybe it's 20 minutes now that you're in your 40s and 50s. If we can normalize the concept that that is okay, and I would love to put forth, who knows? I mean, I just like to put forth things. I would love to put forth that sex gets to be even better because you have that gap. Like when we are intentional about anything, I think that it gets to have like a deeper quality, right? Just because we're like ready at 20, that could be a 5 minute sex session. Boom, wham, bam, thank you. you know? Um,
Absolutely.
but, like, when you're more intentional and it might take a little bit longer to get things to the like, you feel things. You need to be in your body more, you're connected more, you're more intentional about it, and it might just, like, be an amazing experience, right? And so
Oh, absolutely.
just because there's a gap, the gap doesn't necessarily have to be wrong. Like maybe that gap is like I don't even know. Do we like? I'm wondering. Is there
Like
a
a warm up.
concept
It's like a warm
to-
up stage, right? Like you just need a
Yeah,
little bit warm up
yeah,
before
like
the activity.
like more of an investment.
Oh, I love it. I love the
Like to make
investment
it
part.
even better quality or whatever. So that is something that I love that idea of a gap because I think we need to have a different way of looking at this and to recognize how important like this gets to be. And you're mentioning about the different seasons, right? And I know I'm older than you. I'm probably like a good 20 years older than you. And so that being the case, like I'm heading into the fall season. I'm in the fall season, right? And so I can say that like, sex in my 20s was great, but sex now is fabulous too. It's more intentional. Yes, there is a gap there, but, if women all went into their fall, or their autumn part of their life with this concept that sexual intimacy gets to be better than it ever was before, I wonder how, like, if we have a goal and we have a belief that something is just naturally going to or can be potentially even better, like then we figure out how to get there. But society is saying, oh, sex when you get older is just not going to be that great. Like, so right now we're feeding a message and a narrative to women that we need to shift that narrative. What narrative would you like to shift or to give women?
The narrative of the pleasure, I mean, you just really have to love yourself to have pleasure.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel pleasure and it's okay to desire the pleasure.
Yeah.
And that probably would be the one.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that that's so important that we like this gets to be our time, right? We get to focus on the pleasure, we get to focus on the quality, we get to do whatever work we need to do to focus on us, right? How do you
Mhm.
help your clients focus on them and their pleasure?
Through education and um, through open conversations about practices, through open conversation about the concerns, um, through enhancement and the techniques we have to enhance their pleasure, and so forth and so forth. So we have a toolbox of things we can offer to our patients.
Some things like you talked about the topical hormones and there's the systemic hormones. There's like this concept of making sure that you know more about your body and how it works, that open conversations. So uh Yevgenia and Sonia, we together are going to make a toolbox for women, and I think that that would be a great idea. Now, I'm going to give you the option of what medical stuff that you would put in there. And I'm going to put in there, I'm going to put in there permission for toys. Like, I'm going to put in toys to explore your body because I think that that's important. What is something that one thing you might put in there, and then I'll add something. We'll go back and forth.
Absolutely. Probably the first thing I would say HRT, right? Hormonal support throughout the lifetime.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is something that women just to be clear, women have to take through their whole lifetime, the HRT. Once they started, they're gonna continue it.
It's it really depends. It really depends. I think if you really want to hijack the nature, right? Like when we're trying to look into our health from longevity standpoint, you can take it as long as you don't have contraindications. Although I do believe that a lot of patients naturally discontinue them at some point in life. So whatever they just don't want to take it anymore, or they don't see the benefit, or whatnot, or it just became another thing for them to take.
Yeah.
Um,
And so
mhm.
that gets to be a choice that they get to make. So you would put in the toolbox of midlife around sexuality, HRT, and hormones. And I think that's a great idea. And then let's see, what else? I said I would put in toys. The reason I would put toys in there is because, or just self pleasure. You can choose if you want to add in the toys or not. But I think women need to know their body and we need to be at that place in our body where we're like, oh, like honestly, like what my orgasms and pleasure felt like previously and what they feel like now are different. Our body's constantly changing. So we need to understand our body. And the best way to understand it is through self pleasure. So that would be something else that I would put in the toolbox. Evgenia, Dr. Polosina, you have mentioned permission. I think that that's pretty cool. What permission would you put in the toolbox?
Permission to allow yourself to feel pleasure, right? So just like have that permission of eliminating all the noise, all the pressure, all the thoughts of the society. So that's your body, and you are giving yourself permission to have pleasure.
That
That
is
would be my permission.
I love that. That is so good. I'm gonna add in, education, and that a lot of women don't know what their vulva area looks like. They don't even know the difference between a vulva and a vagina, and this is, not to shame anybody, but I think we need to understand what the differences are. We need to know how it works, like, even just looking at it, we may not have looked at our vulva, so I'm gonna add in there self-education about anatomy and what's happening with our bodies during midlife and GSM.
This is so amazing. Yes, you know what? I was listening to your podcast episode about being clitorid, and I never thought of the concepts of, men having penises, and women have vaginas, right? I mean, that's not the equal. It's like even throughout the development, like it's not the same thing. So anyway, so I thought it was a really interesting concept, which even made me smile. I'm like, how did I not even think about it ever? Right?
Well, I can tell you because this world is made for the patriarchy, which needs a hole. I don't and so the focus is gonna be on the hole that women have as opposed to the clitoris. But we are gonna put that focus on all different aspects. So, like, there's so many different ways for women to have pleasure. And so we get to enjoy all aspects of our vulva, not just our vagina. Like we're just amazing. Women are amazing. And so I think that the work that you do is so important and the longevity aspect of it is so important. Any last things that you'd like to add as we kind of wrap up this podcast episode?
Live your life, allow yourself to have pleasure, take care of yourself. Um, yeah, all of those. Love yourself.
Where is it that you practice, just in case anybody wants to come find
Well,
you?
absolutely. My practice is in Folsom, California. It's in Northern California.
In Northern California. All righty. And we will make sure to have all the information on Dr. Polosina's practice in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on the
Thank you
podcast.
for having me, Sonia. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. What a highlight of the week.
So good. All righty. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today on the Midlife Sex Coach for Women podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I want you to remember this. Your body is not failing you, and not tonight is not the end of intimacy. You may be just heading into a new season of intimacy. This is information, it's communication, it's an invitation to get curious instead of critical. The midlife intimacy is not about forcing yourself into desire. It's about understanding yourself in a deeper way than ever before. And my beautiful diamond, that changes everything. If you're ready to continue this work with support, community, and deeper guidance, I'd love to guide you into the Diamond Intimacy Collective. Inside the collective, we're having real conversations about intimacy, desire, relationships, emotions, nervous system regulation, pleasure, and what it truly means to reconnect with yourself in midlife. As you know, we have Q&As and pajama parties and coaching. And now we have introduced new foundational intimacy modules. So there's learning as well. There's so much happening here, and you get to create amazing intimacy for the next 30 years of your life. You don't have to do this alone. Look at the show notes in order to learn more about the Diamond Intimacy Collective. And if this episode helped you today, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another woman who needs to hear this message. Because we are changing the conversation around intimacy in midlife, one diamond at a time. Lots of love, and remember, your pleasure matters. Dr. Sonia out.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Midlife Sex Coach for Women podcast. If you enjoyed Dr. Sonia's fun and caring approach to sexual intimacy, head to SoniaWrightMD.com to learn more.